that there is a creator and he knows all things. We may not know it fully. We only know partial. We only know half of the information, but there is a creator who knows everything, and he loves you and I. And there are moments where we're looking around trying to figure it out. We will look up to him. Sometimes the answer may seem like it's long in coming. I don't know about you, but lately, I mean, on Sunday, I had to take a ride with my son, Nick, and he was having one of his moments. And so we got in a car ride. And I'm riding and I'm just talking to God. I'm like, you're going to have to do something because I don't have answers. I don't know what else to do. And that's vulnerability. But it's also saying that I'm not going to give up asking questions. I'm not going to give up searching for answers. And by the end of the car ride, it took us an hour and a half driving around different towns. I didn't even use my GPS, but I found my way back home. And I was like, let me go discover new places. And so now I know parts of New Jersey that I didn't know before. Why? Because I took a ride. We were playing music. I was talking to Nick. I was saying things. And I know in his own ways, he was acknowledging what I was saying. And by the time I came back from the ride, I was energized. I left here feeling like, wow, overwhelmed. But I came back. I didn't have a clarity direction yet, but something shifted. Something shifted because I said, I've been down this road before. I don't have the answers, but I know that in due season, when I need to make a decision, it will all come together. Why? Because there was a question about what are we going to do regarding school, back to school. And I'm just like, I don't have any answers. School is writing me. I don't have any answers. And instead of getting overwhelmed and feeling like I'm going to fall apart, I just said, I'm going to trust the Lord. And so what am I saying is that you got to trust the Lord. I want to say that to somebody. Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5-6 says, trust the Lord with all your heart. Don't depend on your own limited understanding. I'm paraphrasing that. But in all your ways, acknowledge that the Lord, the Creator, the Heavenly Father, knows it all, and He will. You will come to a place where He will direct your steps. So trust the Lord with all your heart. Not part of your heart, with all of it. Not when things are working out, with all your heart. The good, the not so great, when you're not sure. That's one of my absolute favorite Bible verses because it is a source of encouragement that my complete trust is in my Creator. And He only knows the end of a situation from the beginning. So when you're walking through a storm, you don't know how it's going to end, but there's one assurance that He will see you through. He will never leave you. He will never forsake you. He will strengthen you. He will send you divine helpers. So you just need to know that. So I just want to share that a word of encouragement for someone today to say, take it one day at a time and trust the Lord with all your heart. So as I share that, I'm going to transition us into a conversation with two wonderful people. I mentioned that earlier. I have Adrienne, who is, I'm going to have her introduce you because my Jenny and I were talking about it recently that we love it when we get our parents and our supporters and volunteers to be a part of our conversation, because then it's not just about me just yapping, but it's other people who also are brilliant people who are walking the journey that can also share with us. So we're moving forward. We're definitely going to have more people share and give us their thoughts and what's going on with them. So it's just not just me. So I have Adrienne, who's going to tell us a little bit about herself. And then I also have Sean, who is also going to share a little bit about herself. And then we're going to have a conversation today about to go back to school or not to go back to school. That's the question. To send the kids back to school or not to send the kids back to school physically. That is the question. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit. So Adrienne, if you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself, your family, and your journey.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. G. I want to first start off by saying how much I love MyGOAL and how much I love Dr. G. This is such a blessing to come in to know this organization and all of you, really. This has been really such a blessing to my life. So I thank God for you every day, honestly.
I love you too. Thank you for being who you are and always being a part of what we do.
Yes, indeed. Always, definitely when I can. So I have two children. They're a year apart. Maya, my daughter, is the oldest. She's 11. My son, Sean Jr., is 10, and he's actually diagnosed with autism. Our journey it's been a journey, as you all know. I work full time, and my husband works as well. I do have family support with my mom. She helps us out a lot, so she's definitely a blessing. And it's just been, um, you know, it's been a blessing. It's been a blessing, honestly, and it's been a learning, I would say, and the different things that I've had to learn on this particular journey. Love my children with all my heart, and I wouldn't trade them. Wouldn't trade my children for the world. Even when the times are rough, I know that God is still good. So that's about us. Sean is going into the 5th grade. Maya's going into the 6th, so they'll be at different schools this year. You want me to say?
Yeah, let me unmute myself. Awesome. Thank you so much, Adrian. I'm going to turn it over to Sean to also introduce herself. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, yes, because I get background noise from my I'm Sean. I actually said Adrian's son's name. I have a couple of roles. One is I'm definitely a mom first. I have 3 children, one of which does have an IEP. I am a special education teacher in a self-contained autism program. I've recently transitioned into resource support for the following year, which is a whole other story. And I provide early intervention services, so I'm already utilizing telehealth. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell. And I'm a volunteer for MyGOAL. So I kind of live and breathe education.
Well, thank you so much for being here with us. And I invited them to talk to us a little bit about to go back to school or not to go back to school. In other words, what is the school district been talking to you about? Adrian, we'll start with you first. And, what have you been thinking about? I mean, you went through the spring. What was that experience doing virtual training at virtual schooling? What was that for you like?
So it was definitely a challenge. The children hated it. And as you can hear Sean Jr. now, it was definitely a challenge. We had the devices, so that part was easy, but our school closed with the assumption they were going to be closed for 3 weeks. So they literally gave us 3 weeks of work at first, and then we had to come back and then get the devices, do everything. So there was definitely an adjustment period. And then with him having an IEP and being a self-contained classroom, the work that they provided us initially was for mainstream students. It wasn't even appropriate, really. So he couldn't even do the work, honestly. So it was very challenging. And it was kind of confusing as well. And then really to get answers from them, it was very confusing because it all happened so suddenly. And I felt like our district was not prepared to the point where they left school Friday, 2:00 or whenever. And then they thought they were coming back Monday, 4:30. We received the email that they are not opening on Monday.
Oh, wow. So how did you get through the rest of the time? I mean, like, how did you keep them occupied? What did you do? What tools, what kind of things did you use as the tool?
So once they finally went virtual, and they were able to get the work on there, his teachers were great. They had a whole website, I should call it an app, really was an app that those kids use, and it was wonderful. It was really great. And then I really kept them occupied, honestly, with Jenny, with the games. That was such a help for the spring. Because sometimes I had nothing really for them to do. And I was like, what are we going to do besides take a walk every day? So that was very helpful. And honestly, by the time I got through with the regular school, I wasn't one of those people to keep going on websites, finding more different activities and making little stuff. I couldn't do it. So Jenny, thank you so much for being here.
No problem.
See, Jenny and I were asking, should we continue that whole activities that she was doing in the fall? Because we were like, do families need this? Do they want this? Should we try it? Should we continue? And so to hear you say that definitely, I know, makes her feel good. Like, okay, even if, the philosophy of MyGOAL has always been from the day this organization was started, if we make a difference in one person's life, we've achieved the reason God created this organization. So it warms my heart that if nothing at all during COVID season, what Jenny put together in terms of the weekly activities help Sean. Oh, we're on it. We're doing it again, Jenny. You're doing this job. You can't ever leave this job. Yeah, social media, I am putting her on blast. Don't you dare come steal her. She's not going anywhere.
You got it.
So we're going to turn it over to Sean. Also, tell us how was, you wear multiple hats. And so the teacher hat, right? And you're working with special children with special IEPs, and you were forced to come into the home, educate, while at the same time you got your own kids. So tell us, how did you do it?
So the first 2 weeks were really crazy, like madness, because I had no idea like what I was gonna do. Thankfully, my older two are actually very tech savvy. So right away, they were able to assist me in designing my website. They were like, okay, Ma, you need to get this together. And they just started bam, 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 bam. So that actually took care of a lot of the teacher side of the worry, was me having some of those resources from my own kids. But definitely from the kid perspective, I learned a lot, like about what they're good at, what they like, what they don't like. It was a very interesting ride, because initially I was kind of thinking like, oh my God, like we're just going to be wasting time. They're going to be home doing nothing. They're going to learn nothing. They're going to be home with me doing nothing because I'm going to be teaching. But I discovered that there was just so much other stuff that was around that really like broadened our idea of what education looks like. And I think that's what I really learned the most so far, is just taking education outside of this book and these practical things and bringing it into the real world. So, maybe you can't get, I have a 5-year-old. So maybe I can't get him to go online and read Lexia for a half hour, but I can get him to bake a cake for dinner by looking at the back of the recipe book and getting back of the box. So you're still teaching the same skill, but you're now doing it different. So I was really forced to look at education different, and it actually helped me plan for my students by watching my own journey with my kids and seeing it in a home environment and experiencing it. I could make it more tangible for my parents.
Wow, that's really good to hear. And, because you're coming from two perspectives that is so unique, one as a special ed teacher, and then two as a parent also. And, as I think about this upcoming school year, I'm like, I can't process it. And then that's what I was saying that in the beginning. But what you just said to me just struck a chord, that we're so used to being regimented. School year goes from September through June. And it's Monday through Friday from 9:15 thereabout to 2:30 thereabout. And then there's after school, and we know regiment, and it works. We've done that since many of us were born, right? Now COVID is like, oh no. School districts come up with multiple plans. Let's think about that. So you can, if you can talk freely, Sean, on what are you hearing the school districts discussing? Give us the teacher's viewpoint, because we're gonna go to Adrian and hear the parents' viewpoint, your parent. But how are teachers feeling about going back to school in this new climate and how to teach?
So I think it's, a lot of teachers are just as apprehensive, if not more, than parents right now, because we're being tasked with not only the education part of in-person and online, but also with your health of your child, basically. And the idea of, especially those of us that work in special ed, where children's immune systems are a lot lower, the possibility that I could carry something and kill your child, that's a really deep level of, concern. And I think, looking on the outside in, when you see all the teacher strikes and you're hearing about there's a bill being passed, there's a bill in the works in New Jersey right now to delay opening because of some of these things about safety and whatnot. It sounds like, oh, they just don't want to go to work. Well, it's actually a lot easier to sit at work. I get transition time. I get time alone. I give the kids group work. I give them independent work, and I go sit down and just breathe. Well, online, you don't get to do that. I'm expected to be available 24/7. There's no breathing room. There's no turning my head. You expect me, right? Like, so I think that's one factor. We're looking at the idea of hybrid. Most districts are coming up with a hybrid program, meaning they're giving parents a choice. Are you going to enroll in person or online? There's not really a choice to do both. So you must pick. But to that end, I would say, like, especially from a parent of a child with an IEP, I think that, a lot of people are very worried about what kids aren't going to learn. And I've realized that a lot of the stuff that we have in our curriculum and the things that we teach every day, they're not, they're so broad and encompassing of so much stuff that really doesn't need to be taught, so to speak. So I'm learning a lot more about paying attention to what we refer to in education as the standards and what we refer to as self-contained as essential elements. And really looking at, what is it this child needs to do in preparation for 7th grade, 4th grade, 2nd grade, whatever that is. And that's where I feel like as an educator and a parent, I'm going to hit my focus at. So when these lessons start coming in as a parent, even for my own kids, I'm really going to look and I'm like, you don't need that. We're not doing it. And I mean, I think like we're all going to have to take that kind of approach of looking at our child as individual. And yes, the teacher is going to be responsible for teaching, but we need to be able to kind of discern what's for our child. So even though the grade level may say they're supposed to write, 20 vocabulary words and come and go look around the house and find 10 objects that match and find a synonym for, is that what your child needs? And I think a lot of us in education and parents are really going to be looking at that in a different way, because now we have to use our time a lot more wisely. Right. So, but there's definitely a lot of pushback from parents and teachers, not necessarily willing to go in person. And yeah, I think the obvious reason is the safety.
Right. So, Adrienne, we're going to turn that to you. What are you thinking about with, because you talked about the spring and how challenging that was. So what have you been thinking about? What is the conversation in your home about going back to school?
Well, the conversation has been similar to what Sean just said. It's really the health of the teachers and the students and the parents. And I'm not a teacher, but I work as an administrative in a school. And I honestly, I could say I'm afraid for the children, all of the children, to return to school in a couple of weeks. For the teacher's sake, for the students' sake, and I mean, we all have children here. We know that parents send their children to school sick when it's not COVID season. I mean, so now we have a whole nother level of deep concern on top of it. And I don't understand how this really can work. For my own, children, it was challenging, and online, it was okay. It was okay once they got it, together and in place. But there was an element of Sean almost needs someone on top of him to really make sure that the work is getting done. So for our children who have IEPs and have special needs, I'm thinking they need a lot of hands-on support. And as a parent, I can't always do that sitting here working from home. My husband really can't do that because he's working from home, or he has to go to the office a lot now. But I don't know what that will look like. And my district they haven't given us a schedule, but they are working on some hybrid plan where Group A goes one day, goes another day. When he's here, I don't think he's really going to be doing anything besides playing on his game. That's just me being honest. I'm not sure if it'll work, but I have a lot of, I'd rather him be here playing on the game, honestly, than in a school.
Right. So I'm hearing, and I was thinking about it today. I was like, well, what's my number one? What is my most important priority for my child? And, one area which you just alluded to, and Sean, you alluded to, is safety. And so as, for parents who are watching and thinking through it, some of the things that I have been thinking about is health first, then education second. And then I think that's what Sean alluded to. It's like, think about, what does the child truly need to learn right now? And, why it would be good, because I've gone back and forth. I'm like, I love that break. for him to go to school and have the teachers hands-on. But the New Jersey Department of Education put out their, plan. And one of the biggest thing they're concerned about is the safety and appropriate PPE for the staff. And I know our school district was attempting, or my son's school, because he's out of school placement, was attempting to get the PPE. They were talking about face shield. They're talking about all these things. So you're absolutely right. We need to think about the health of the teachers and the health of the children. And so we're caught between a rock and a hard place, right? The key thing is, what do you think about first is the health. And so I know in our town, they're talking about a hybrid model. And the school day is going to be 6.5 hours, whether it's in person or half person. They just sent an email today about that. So by my older daughter, younger one, Delali, we were having a conversation yesterday about going back to school. And I'm like, I'm not sure I want you to go back physically. Oh, I'm going to miss my friends. I was like, well, we're going to have to figure out a play date. We're going to have to figure out a way. So I think there's an element of that I'm thinking about. It's like, how do I, with special ed, it's a little bit more complicated. You need that hands-on, So what could a parent do? Could you look into having an ABA therapist through your health insurance, provide additional instruction within the home setting and teaching those other skills? Do you suspend the academics for just a season, in this season, and focus on the other life skills that is needed? So I'm throwing it out there, like, let's consider different things. Sean, you were going to say something?
I like that last point you brought up. Two things you brought up that were really important. The last one you said was actually we should be revising our kids' IEP goals where now they're going to make sense. Because a lot of times the goals that we've had in place had nothing to do with remote learning. It had nothing to do with not being hands-on. I mean, a lot of goals are defined by we will use hand over hand.
Right.
You won't be. That's number one. And number two, I also want to put it out there that I feel like there's a little bit of a false impression in right now, I guess, across the United States about social emotional health and mental health, and how, it's going to be so great for them to go into school so that they can build that. But as an educator, I can honestly say we're not going to really be able to build that. Yes, we have curriculum in place where we're thinking about how to address what students have experienced. But I think the level of anxiety that we're going to place on kids, especially our kids with special needs and autism, who sense us so strongly when we're, fearful or we're worried or we're upset. A lot of the tools that they rely on for support, we're not going to be able to give. Sensory rooms are going to be a no-no. Because it's possible to sanitize them. We can't give hugs. We can't give we can't give high fives. We can't get lion when you come close to a child. You give that eye. We're talking 6 feet away from a child with autism. I mean, I know that we can't just look at special ed only, but I think there's definitely a little bit of a false dynamic that, they're going to be so wonderful. We just send them to school. They're going to be happy. But actually, we're talking about more of a militant almost procedure. This is not the school that U.S. students are used to, where you can't get out of your desk without permission. You can't go to the bathroom unless someone's escorting you to make sure you were 6 feet on the line, walking on tape like a prisoner.
Wow. Adrienne, anything you want to add to that?
I do want to say one of the things that I don't work in the same district. I don't work in the same district where I live. One of the things that the school put out that I work at today was they will have monitored hand washing. And I'm thinking now, you have to have someone standing there making sure these children wash their hands correctly. Now, our school goes K-8. Half of these children really don't even know how they're not washing their hands, period. I mean, they're probably doing it now, and you sometimes have to wash it for them a little bit. Like, you have to sometimes really help them. I mean, so I just think it's going to look very different. Like Sean said, it's going to be extremely different. And I think it's going to be very uncomfortable for children who have been in school. Someone's coming in, they don't know any difference. But the ones who's been there, it's difficult to not hug your teacher. You run to them for comfort, for love, for the nurse is a big source of, comfort for students. It's just, I don't think it's going to, be the same, and it's going to be very hard for them.
What does crisis intervention look like? Kind of crisis is we get hands-on with you. What is that going to look like? We can't I mean, and that's a real part of our day, whether you're talking gen ed or special ed. Like I'm
Yeah.
on this team.
Yeah.
That's what I do. Well, how do you have a child who may be running out the building? What are you gonna do? I mean,
Yeah.
this is real.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you said that, because the crisis intervention piece is what has kept us from thinking about sending Nicholas back. And this conversation is very, very helpful, even in our short time talking about it. And I think that more parents, this I know it's been helpful for me hearing you say this, because I haven't given that thought to, you're right, the school setting is not going to look like the way kids are used to. And that may be more traumatizing to them, because what they're not talking about is the kids who will have to sit in the same classroom all day long, and teachers may have to be rotating to them to avoid that hallway looking all congested. But one element for kids is the fact that they get out of their classroom and walk in. I mean, when they're in, preschool, or they're in kindergarten, or they're in elementary school, they're able to do it, but that interaction is not going to be there as much. But I know that there's a value in of education. So I'm just saying that we're going to need to think outside of the box. We want that social interaction. We're going to have to find a way to create that. We're going to have to really think carefully that in this season, until things can calm down, how do we ensure their health first? So our special needs kids, especially, kids with autism, with other, are the ones that are most vulnerable. A lot of them have immune issues going on. A lot of them are more very sensitive. They can be asymptomatic carriers of this thing and bring it to school. And the poor teacher who has that immunocompromised state, diabetic, and all those things cannot touch this child. So we cannot take it for granted that this is a complex issue. And, I know, our district did not even have any guidance for the special ed population. No guidance. They're like, we're going to have to figure something out, because they can't even figure out what they're going to do for typical, and what are they going to do for the kids that need that additional support. So I think there's going to have to be a revisit the IEP. I'm encouraging parents, call your case manager. I think that's going to be a key thing we can say right now. Call your case manager and have a conversation about what does IEP look like. You got to do it. They're suggesting that they put additional support on that so that you can have those conversations. And then also, let's start being creative. It may mean a weekend school. I don't see why we can't think outside of the box. Why does it have to be Monday to Friday? Some parents work Monday to Friday. I can't teach my child Monday to Friday. Maybe I could do a Saturday school. What's wrong with that? I'm just throwing it out there for the educators, administrators out there hearing me. Consider evening school. Consider day school. Let's get creative. If we need to postpone school year starting a little, I'm for that until you figure it out. But let's not push things in and then create more havoc that way. Any other thoughts or comments from any of you guys?
One last
we get to round up?
I would say is I would have parents design, I know design is a fancy word, but come up with a learning kit of skills, of things that are important for you as a parent, you as a family, that you know for sure that you want your child to do, to master, to be focused on. And if nothing else that you get done, throughout the year, whatever our struggles are, you can look back and say, I accomplished these goals.
Wow.
I would definitely take that picture right now. I'm starting to do it with my own kids, and that's why I can say it, especially because I do have kids going into first grade who I felt learned zero. He learned more. But I could have done better had I been more focused and more looking at like you're looking at it now.
Very good.
Looking at evenings, looking at weekends, and how we're utilizing our time.
Yeah, very good. How about you, Adrian? Any other last thoughts or additional comments to add?
I like what Sean said. That was very helpful to list out the goals. That was very helpful. The only other thing I would say is, we can't take it lightly, and all, everything that we said here was just wonderful. And as we go about this next few weeks and months together, just, continue to pray for one another, because
yes,
that's what we need the most.
That's for sure. That's for sure. Well, thank you, ladies. This has been a fantastic conversation. We have it on Facebook, and obviously, what I was hoping would do is that it will prompt people to think about these things and to voice out what they're thinking. Administrators out there that are hearing us, we really, really, really want you to think outside of the box. I think we should encourage even people who we know, attendants, reach out to them, the Board of Education, reach out to them. They need to hear from parents. They need to hear from us. Our voice has been silent. Call them, reach out to them and say, we want to help you think outside of the box. We want to help you because they don't have the answers. That's one thing that COVID has done in this season. So, I know that that's one of the key things that I wanted to bring up. We're going to continue this conversation because this is hot. I think that because it's just ongoing. This is going to be part of an ongoing series because I think that people have a lot to share, and come maybe next week we even have more new information for us to really add to that conversation. So I want to thank you guys so much for being here. Before we go, I just, Adrian, you said something that was powerful. You said, let's continue to pray for each other. So if you're watching out there, and you're hearing and you're like overwhelmed and you're like, I don't know what to do. I don't have I don't have the opportunity, or I don't know what to do. Like I said before, trust the Lord with all your heart. Don't get anxious about making any decision right now because the administrators, they haven't settled on it yet. If there's no answer yet, and you don't have to give an answer right now, don't panic. Be still and know that God is in control. It will come together. 2 weeks ago, I thought I had to make a decision, and Nick had to go back to school on the 28th, this past Tuesday. Well, guess what? A week before that, they're like, oh yeah, never mind. We don't have the tools. So I didn't have to make a decision. I was like, I don't know what to do. I'm just going to wait it out until like 2 days before or the day before I'll make a decision then. I actually had the director of special ed call me and say, what are you planning on doing? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. Because they kind of wanted to get a sense of what parents are planning on doing. And I was just like, we honestly don't know. But I think even out of this conversation, I'm really now moving forward. And I think health over worrying about whether they're going to be behind or not. Because guess what? They're going to catch up. They're going to catch up. Sometimes illness can keep an individual from school for a number of months. Sometimes kids get into, an accident, something happens and they're out of school. Guess what? They catch up and they're doing fine in life. So why are we now acting like the world is ended because a semester has not changed? And I think that's really what we want to keep it in perspective. Let's keep having these conversations. And I want to just bless the Lord for each one of you. Dear God, I just thank you for each and every family out there who has to make this incredible decision of deciding how to take care of their loved one. Lord, I release your grace upon each family. I ask you to give them wisdom. I ask you to give them the strength, the patience, the courage, the boldness to say, I am going to take care of my child's needs, healthcare needs first. And God, I pray that the administrators who have to make this awesome, difficult, incredibly difficult decisions, give them wisdom, dear God, because we know wisdom comes from you. We bless you and we thank you. In the precious name of Jesus, I've prayed. Amen. Amen. I want to thank you, Sean and Adrian and Pat. Welcome to the conversation. And Jenny, thank you for all that you do, for your encouragement and having this conversation. It's been very enriching for me. We just said, we needed to do this and continue. So we'll be meeting up again next week, believe it or not, because we said we're going to be doing it at least the 1st and the 3rd of each month. But in July, it went there were 5 Thursdays. So I was committed to meeting that. So next week, we're going to connect again, and we'll have some more stuff to talk about, definitely, because we know that this is a hot topic, and hopefully all of you can join us again. So once again, thank you for joining us on this Empowerment with Dr. G. I love all of you, and God bless you. Once again, I want to thank our panelists, and of course, Sean, for who you are, and Adrian, my love to all the kids. God bless you. All right, bye-bye now.
Bye, thank you.
Bye.
Good night.